fellow coders and friends, this is Bari here, and welcome back to the Basics of Programming tutorial. Last video I went over a very brief overview on a very basic program, this Hello World program here, and I also went over these comments, which I cannot stress enough how important they are. They not only make it easier on others looking at your source code to know what it's doing, but also for you to know what your code is doing to make it easier to document and maintain your programs. Now, this video, I'm going to go over data types, variables, and functions. Your data types are exactly what it sounds like. It is the type of data that your variables are going to have. Most programming languages, these data types need to be declared before your variable name, so the compiler can know how much space to allocate to that specific variable, and just to know what type of data that it's going to hold. With Python, you don't need to do that. Another reason why I really like Python. It's all done by the interpreter, so your variables can hold many different data types, not at the same time. They can hold one data type at one point, and then at some point in the code, if it needs to hold another data type, it can. So your basic data types are your integers, which is int. That's your normal numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1,000, 10,000, 657, all those normal numbers, right? Excuse me. Your floating point numbers, or floats. These are your real numbers. So 3.14, 6.57, numbers like that. Now, float has a precision of about 7 decimal places, I think. It's either 7 or 8. Now you have doubles as well, which is exactly like a float, except it's double precision. That's why it's called a double. So instead of 7 or 8, it's 14 or 16. It's one of the two. You have your character data type, which is all these single characters. This T, this C, this exclamation point, this quotation mark. Those are all single characters, and that is what the character data type is for. There is the string data type, which is actually a defined data type within the language itself. So each language has its own way of working with strings. Most of the time it's represented as just a character array, or an array of characters. I'll get into arrays later, but it's all built into the language itself, so you can use either string data type as its own data type. With C, you can't do that, for example, because C does not have a built-in data type of string. It has functions defined that allow you to work with character arrays as a string, but it's not actually a string. Whoa, what is this nonsense, IDE? No, it's not a base string, it's a string. Okay, now the last commonly used data type is bool or boolean. Those only are 2 values, are ever only 2 values, and always will only ever be 2 values. True and false, 0 and 1. That is it. That speaks for itself, true or false. So those are your data types. Now on to variables. You can name your variables almost anything you want. There are a few rules. The naming conventions, I believe, are it can't start with a number, so that's illegal. 3 variable cannot be the variable name. 4 variable cannot be the variable name. It can't start with certain special characters. I know some special characters are allowed for some languages, but I will get into those in specific tutorials for specific languages. For now, no special characters at all either. Now, in between here can be. So you can have an asterisk in here, you can have a percentage sign in here, it just can't start with it. So you can also have like an underscore in here. That's a very common naming convention. If your variable name represents 2 words, you separate them with an underscore so it's easier to read. I believe those are it's called snake case? Yeah, I think it's called snake case. And then there's also camel case, which you separate them with the first word being lowercase with the first letter, and then each other word is uppercase. So variable, capitalize the N in name. There's camel case, this right here, and then there's also this variable name. I'm just going to keep this variable though. Now that you have your variable name, you want it to have something. So you have your equal sign here. Now that equal sign does not mean equals. Variable does not equal anything. It is assigned something. So what this statement here is saying is variable named variable is going to be assigned something. I don't have that something right now. Let's put that something in. I'm going to give it 10, the integer value of 10. So now variable named variable is assigned integer value 10. That's what that means. And now our variable named variable, whenever we use it, is going to be using the value of 10. So now let me get rid of this comment because it's not going to be true in just a second here. Bam. Print variable. Now what that means is this print function here is going to take in our variable named variable. Whoa, no. There we go. It's going to take in our variable named variable, which has the data value 10, and print that value out. Boom. Print out 10. Now, that's the most common thing to do with variables, is pass them into functions, which now you know what this is. This is a function. This print here, that is a print function. The reason why we can use it without defining it is because it's already defined in Python standard library. But you can also define your own functions. Now, how you do that is like this. You need the keyword def standing for define, your function name, which I believe follows the same naming conventions as your variables, so can't start with the number, can't start with any weird special character, but anything in between is fine. Just it cannot start with those. Then you also need your open and closed parentheses here. Now these can be left empty, meaning that your function will not be taking in any values to assign any parameters that it will be using. It'll just, once you call it, it'll do what it's supposed to do, and then done, come out. And then you end it with a semicolon. Or not a semicolon, a colon, I'm sorry. Now, some functions, that's okay. You just need it to do one thing and that's it, and take no parameters, whatever. But you can also pass values into these functions. So now your parameter name is basically the variable name that will be used within the function that will use that passed value. So I'm going to name it passed val. That is a parameter of the function my function that will be storing whatever value is passed in here. What the function is going to do is print that value out. So now we can get rid of this here, and now we can do a call to our newly defined function here, my function variable. passing in our variable name, holding our value of 10, and I will run this here, and it prints out 10. Now you can change this value to 58, and that's what it'll print out. You can change it to our string value of hello world, and it'll print out hello world. So that is the basics of data types, variables, and functions. This is the most commonly seen thing done with all these variables and functions. Now, on a more complex scale, this is a very powerful tool. Variables and functions are extremely powerful. And as powerful as every language's standard library is, with all of the functions and everything that come along with the language, your ability to make your own functions for your own needs is also a very powerful thing. You can have this function, my function, do a whole bunch of different things, and then you just have a call to that function name and pass in whatever variables that it needs to have or not. It's up to you to, if your function needs parameters to be passed in, it's all up to you. Alrighty, and that'll wrap up data types, variables, and functions. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe. Subscribe also if you just want to learn more about programming and you hate my videos. I don't care. Subscribe if you want to. And I will see you guys in my next video. My next video is going to be on selection structures. Another very powerful tool in programming. They're all powerful tools, if used in a very powerful way. Power. Alright guys, I will see you all later. I love you guys. Bye-bye.